So what if the oldest art in the world isn't really art at all? What if it's a map to another dimension? We're about to connect a 17,000-year-old cave painting to the very dawn of civilization, and it's all thanks to one impossible clue.
Okay, before we go any further, I really need you to get your head around this time scale. Seriously? Forget the Roman Empire, forget the pyramids, we are going back 17,000 years. This is a time when woolly mammoths were still roaming the earth.
And that brings us to the big question, right? Picture it, our ancestors huddled in caves by flickering firelight. What were they really painting on those walls? Were they just drawing the world they saw around them, or were they drawing a world they saw within?
So our investigation really kicks off with a single, pretty bizarre clue. And the craziest part is it's been hidden in plain sight for millennia.
Here it is. Inside the world-famous Lascaux caves, you've got all these incredible paintings of bulls and horses, exactly what you'd expect to see. And then, there's this figure. It's often called the shaft of the dead man, and it's completely different from everything else in the cave. It's a man with the unmistakable head of a bird.
Now, there's a term for this kind of thing. It's called a theanthropod, part human, part animal. And look, finding one this old is absolutely incredible. But that's not the real mystery here. The truly strange part is where this exact same figure pops up again, thousands of years later and thousands of miles away.
And now we're going to see how this one strange painting echoes through time in a way that honestly should be impossible.
So after this painting was made, figures like it just seem to disappear. For over 12,000 years, the archaeological record is just quiet on the Birdman. It's almost like the idea was painted on that wall and then completely forgotten.
But was it truly forgotten? Or was it just, waiting to be found again?
And then, after a 12,000-year silence, this appears. On the right, that's an Apkallu from ancient Sumeria. I mean, come on, the resemblance is just uncanny. You got the humanoid body, the bird-like head. But here's the kicker. The Sumerians gave us a crucial detail the cave painters didn't. They said these beings were wise, non-human teachers who brought civilization to mankind.
This timeline just lays the whole puzzle out perfectly. First, you have the Birdman in 17,000 BCE. Then, a 12,000-year gap. Just silence. And then all of a sudden, the Sumerians are talking about bird-headed teachers, and pretty soon after that, the Egyptians are depicting gods like Horus and Thoth. So how is this possible? And let me be perfectly clear. There was absolutely no known contact between Ice Age France and ancient Mesopotamia. It just didn't happen.
And this brings us to a fascinating and pretty controversial theory. It's one that says the connection isn't cultural, it's experiential. It's all about a journey.
The whole theory really hinges on this one idea, the shamanic trance. And we're not just talking about dreaming here. This is an intentionally induced, altered state of consciousness, which ancient cultures believed allowed the shaman's spirit to literally leave the body and travel to other worlds.
So here's the theory in a nutshell. They weren't copying each other. They couldn't have been. So what if the shaman in France and the priest in Sumeria were, through their own rituals, traveling to the exact same place and meeting the exact same beings?
And this is the path they supposedly took. It all starts with a ritual, drumming, chanting, dancing, something to induce a trance. Then, in that altered state, the shaman's consciousness takes a journey to another realm. And there, they encounter these non-human beings. They communicate, and then they return, bringing back knowledge and wisdom.
So if we just entertain this wild theory for a moment, what are the implications? I mean, if our ancestors weren't just making up stories, but were actually reporting on their travels, what does that change? Well, pretty much everything.
There's this quote that just sums it up perfectly. Not a hallucination, but a destination. That's the core of this whole idea. It's proposing that these trance states aren't just random brain noise. They are a method of travel to a real place. The implications of this are just staggering. It would mean that consciousness isn't actually stuck inside our brains. It would mean our ancient ancestors were in direct contact with some kind of non-human intelligence, the very same beings the Sumerians called their teachers, the Anunnaki. It suggests the whole foundation of our civilization might have been seeded by visitors from another realm. And all of this just leaves us with one final, haunting question. If the cave painters and the first priests were telling the truth, if they really were astral architects visiting another dimension, who or what was waiting for them on the other side?